All right, we are live for Thursday edition of the Mike and Mario Show, connecting one day earlier due to arrangement of events and things of that nature. But nevertheless, we're here, excited to connect. Looking forward to finding out what's happening in Mario's world as well as what's happening around the world. So we'll dive into that. We got a lot of interesting stories to say the least. And before we dive into that, Mario, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Mike, and you?
I'm doing great, my friend. Excited to connect as always. Looking forward to just scanning through the headlines, seeing what's making its way to the surface, and giving our 2 cents on it. And of course, being able to connect with the audience to find out what they're keeping their eyes on. Just because, as we always say, there's maybe 100 or so different issues the world is facing, and we can't cover them all. That's why it's good to have a community that's definitely plugged in. So, all right, let's jump right into it. So we got a variety of subjects. And so, of course, but you being in the UK, you want to definitely cover the situation happening there in real time. And then, of course, I think to zoom out as to what's happening beyond our own domestic issues is what's happening on the international scene. And it has a lot to do with the furtherance of alternatives being brought into existence bit by bit to diversify away from the dollar, which happens to be the head honcho as of now. But enough ranting. For those that are plugged in, let us know if the audio is good. If you haven't already, hit a thumbs up, show support for the channels, and then we'll jump into some headlines. And so let's just start off right away. I want to give you a chance, Mario, to talk about the epidemic
Yeah,
underway in the UK. But feel free to share your thoughts on what's happening, my friend.
yeah, and it's not like a health epidemic or anything. It's more to do with shoplifting, and I've entitled the live stream on my site "When Money Dies in the UK: The Shoplifting Epidemic," and I've read quite a few stories today in the major papers here, and yeah, they look at the superficial reasons, like there's not enough police, it's gangs and stuff, but none of them look at the fact that the shoplifting, so to speak, really started back in 2009 from the top. And what do I mean
Mhm.
by that? Well, it was the QE and the money printing, the inflation. Inflation is theft.
Yeah.
And the Bank of England, the government have been doing it for over a decade. And they've done so much of it that our currency is becoming worth less and less. And it doesn't pay for people to work, or when people do work, they can't survive on what they earn. So they revert to buying stolen goods. And I think
Yeah.
that's why there are gangs out there stealing a lot of stuff from the shops. The police, as well, of course, they've they're not doing their job properly. They've cut down the numbers of the police force, so it's all a mixture. But it reminds me of Brazil back in the 70s and 80s. We had a lot of petty theft and shoplifting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what's the point of going to work if you're not going to survive on it? And yeah, and people say, well, look at what they've been doing. They've been printing all this money. Their friends at the top are making hundreds of millions from cronyism.
Mhm.
We're going to get involved. It's at a lower level, of course, but it's the same. And so I think that's why we have the epidemic, and it's a symptom of inflation. And
Mhm.
I think it's going to get worse because I spoke today in my daily video that the Bank of England is already talking about stopping the rate hikes. So they're going to sacrifice, I think, the pound in order
Mhm.
to keep the Ponzi going. So that's what's going on here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so the epidemic is just not in your area, as we went before we talked about online. California has become the epicenter in our country of just flash mobs attacking, and they have actually stores are closing now all throughout California, from what I'm reading. And then there's videos surfacing of just people ransacking, grocery stores, food stores, shop. I mean, you name it. And it's like my thought is like, what do you really stand to benefit? Like, $100 here, a couple $100 at best, but then again, I understand the mindset of a good portion of our country that thinks that everything is either free or there's no punishment behind it because crime does pay. It looks like now, and they moved it from the top echelon in governments where you can get away with stuff. Now it's trickling down to the lower level to where unless it's over $1,000 or so, you can get away with it for now. But then again, this is very small in comparison to what, as you mentioned, I think is going to be coming down the line when the real pain sets in. So, but yeah, it's nothing new at all, to say the least. But let's get to some of the global events happening that the world really, for the most part, is not focusing on, and it has to do with I think something that's important. I'm curious to get your thoughts on it, but China has decided to open up what looks like their first branch in Saudi Arabia. And so I'm reading comments or whatnot on Twitter about this, and a lot of people were saying that, oh, this could be the start now, or the official petro yuan eventually being utilized as an alternative, of course. But then again, they have some of the foreign ministers or whatever attending this ceremony. So in your opinion, is this something that will continue to pick up and further the de-dollarization push, or what?
Yeah, definitely. Is just like American banks, like in the old days, it was Chase Manhattan, Chemical Bank, JP Morgan. They're all over Europe. And
Mm-hmm.
the same thing is going to happen with the Chinese banks, like Bank of China, which is not the central bank, but it's a big commercial bank. They're going to probably open branches in other countries like Brazil, South Africa as well, United Arab Emirates, and then you're going to get other banks like ICBC and many others that I probably not have not even heard of, because the more business China does with the rest of the world, the more branches they have. I mean, I was telling you there are Bank of China branches in London,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the Chinese are moving away from the West
Yeah.
slowly but surely. And you spoke about that foreign direct investment from China has
Mm-hmm.
slowed down into the U.S. and I expect the same to happen for the U.K.
Yeah. And as you were talking, I was thinking about just how China, regardless of what their currency is doing right now, so I'll see a lot of commentators talk about, the yuan is tanking right now because the dollar on the Dixie is going through the roof and it's causing issues and all the other currencies. Okay, sure. But I'm thinking like, regardless of that, China's still moving forward with an agenda, regardless of whatever it is we're seeing or being told. And I'm thinking like, based upon this first opening of a branch, I'm thinking like the way the U.S. has spread military bases all across the world, I wouldn't be surprised if China also starts spreading commercial banks throughout the world as well to basically give other nations opportunities to get into the yuan trade settlement. So we will definitely keep an eye on that. But yeah, it's just more proof that regardless of what we're being told, they're moving forward with their agendas. And then here's another issue or possible issue as well. And so this is from Watcher Guru, but it says BRICS discussing unified settlements as an alternative to the U.S. dollar. And so this is from a article or whatever from the Russian finance minister who's just talking about the importance of needing to not only use their own currencies, but then also have something outside their own currencies to use. And of course, no official details as of yet, but
Yeah.
they're developing, they're working, they're building something. So this adds to the whole move away from the Western hemisphere. So, but what are your thoughts on this, Mario?
Yeah, I read that story, and he reiterated that it's not like they want to form a single currency like the euro. They,
Mm-hmm.
they just want some kind of a settlement currency, maybe based on commodities. And I think by that he means gold and maybe oil, natural gas. I don't know how they're going to do it. And I
Yeah.
think for them, it's very difficult to come out and say exactly what they want to do because they it could be sabotaged. So
Yeah.
that's why they're being vague. And yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people out there who are still in denial, who think the dollar is going to be there as the major reserve currency forever. But there's the old saying that the sun never set on the British Empire. But eventually, by 1954, the dollar took over sterling as the major reserve currency. Most people think it was after World War II, but it took 10 years. But if you go back to 1900, if you told someone in the UK, oh, in 50 years, the British pound is not going to be the major reserve currency anymore. You won't have an empire. They would have laughed at you. Um,
Yeah.
so things can happen fairly quickly. Am I saying it's going to take 50 years from now? No, I think it could accelerate because this move into the BRICS, now we're going to BRICS 11
Mhm.
next year, is going to just accelerate. And some people say, oh, these countries have nothing in common, but they do.
Mhm.
What they have in common is that they have a common enemy, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and, and I don't even think they want to fight the West. They just want to cooperate so that they can be more sovereign, so to speak. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying they're going to be perfect, but it's going to affect us because they're going to need less of our currencies.
Right. And it's definitely going to hit hard in the US because we have used our currency as a primary tool to live good, live high on a hill for decades now. And we're witnessing the shift away from that when, especially when it comes to the debt market and credit. But as you were talking about the changing of the guards, I thought about this little infographic that I always love to refer to of how there's ultimately a changing of the monetary order one way or another. And so I put TBD for 2003 and onward. So we'll find out what that, single or multiple or basket or whatever it is might be. But things always change. It's inevitable. So we'll have to wait and see. And on top of that, while the governments are trying to settle out how they're going to do their international trade, individual countries, governments have been getting their weight up heavy with the accumulation of more gold over the last several months. And so I meant to add, let me see if I can find that. The stats with the gold holdings, but it looks like the a lot of nations as they dump treasuries, they're diversifying into gold as well. So let me grab my little thing real quick. But go, I may not be able to grab it, but I won't be able to find it. But anyway, we'll keep moving. Would you see some in the chat?
Well, I'm seeing some comments here. Someone's Greg Austin, brand new Chinese ghost city style future slum suburb McMansions. I mean, I've seen those ghost cities in
In
China
China?
for many years. Someone's talking about Evergrande, but Evergrande, I think, yeah, it's a problem. But the Chinese government, I think, their policy is that they want to deflate. They know that there's a lot of speculation.
Mhm.
They're letting it go. Um, yeah,
Letting
so
some air out the bubble. All right,
yeah.
so let me. I want to also share with the audience this little mock-up of what is being mentioned as a sample note that was apparently given to some of the people attending the BRICS conference, more so probably as like a little inside thing. But I don't know how this picture surfaced, but it's on Sprinter, and I thought it was interesting just because it's just a representation of the BRICS nations in the middle with a denomination of 100. I don't know what 100 what that 100 actually is denominated in. Is that 100 bricks or 100 whatever? But who knows? But I thought it was just interesting. But
Well,
it says the Russian ambassador. Go ahead.
they'll
Huh?
have to change it next year because there's six new countries.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Do you think they're going to add all those flags, making us if
Yeah,
this was a paper note, making
and
it that much bigger, or just add them on the outside?
you don't even know if they really had that at the
Yeah. Right.
BRICS summit. Someone could have just made it up.
Correct. And I
Uh,
imagine they did, but it's just entertaining to say the least
yeah,
because
yeah. We've got a super chat from PM Galleria. Thank you, PM. African countries are uniting and will not use currency or goods of any foreigners, BRICS, EU, or whoever. Listen to their leader's speech. Yeah, I agree with that. And the same thing for the BRICS countries. They're going to use their own currencies. But they do need also other countries' currencies if they want to buy stuff from China or even the
Mhm.
US. They'll need some dollars. But yeah, if people want to buy stuff from them, I think Ghana they came
Gold.
out some months ago and said that if you want to buy their gold, you have to buy with the local currency.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving. A couple more articles here. Let's go to this one here. Let me remove this here. It says global finance system fragmenting. Myanmar crisis worsens, the UN chief says. And so it looks like more of the smaller nations are starting to feel the pinch of higher interest rates and the inability to service the current debt loads they have. So they're begging for some type of renegotiation. But what are you thinking about this word of fragmenting?
Well, I just think this is the guy who said the world was boiling, wasn't it? The
Mm,
head of the UN.
yeah.
So I'm not sure he knows much about finance. I do know that the Russians decided to forgive basically, I think it was
Hmm.
about 20 to 30 billion dollars in debt
Africa.
to Africa.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's going to be the way forward. Um, but I guess if a country is beholden, owes it to the IMF will will put a lot of conditions, and it's one of the reasons why they're trying to get away from the IMF World Bank system.
Yeah.
So there you go. But
23 billion.
yeah, yeah, it was the 23. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I mean, Myanmar is, like you said, it's a small country, but and you had problems with Sri Lanka as well
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
some months
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
and but the problems are everywhere,
Right.
even in the so-called developed industrialized nations.
Right. I think one of the biggest issues a lot of those smaller countries are going to face is the fact that their debt is denominated in dollar, and if they can't service those debts, then again they're going to have to make some very, very drastic changes within their own country, leading to events such as what happened in Sri Lanka, to where there'd be an uprising, gas
Yeah,
prices, it's all types of
or
taxes and stuff like that.
the thing is, they could just like say, well, we're not going to pay you, and just join the BRICS and start trading with those countries.
Yeah. But do you
Yeah,
think the BRICS would willingly let a nation into their mix that is outright defaulting on their current obligations and maybe not be bringing much to the table unless they're, you know, rich in
well,
agriculture, gold, silver
I'm
mining, or something like
sure
that?
they won't just let anyone in, but it's an
Yeah.
option. all,
Yeah.
all I'm trying to say is, Richard Nixon defaulted in 1971 on the
Hmm.
debt. That's what it was, closing the gold window. And
Yeah.
it's the U.S. Treasury has been in default for 52 years.
Yeah.
Why can't why? And the thing is, the debt that is owed to the U.S. it's not even real money. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think of course, one of the differences is that at that time, I believe we probably really had 8,300 tons in Fort Knox still,
well,
to where,
it was gonna run out though. If
right,
they
right, right. So that's why they did it. But
yeah.
it's gonna be hard for a nation that don't have much gold to call themselves reneging on a promise. But it'll be entertaining, but it's gonna hurt because somebody else's asset on the other end of that. So all right, let's get into some more questions, some more thoughts here. Let me see what else we got here. We skipped
And I
that one.
think, Mike, a lot of these dollar liabilities, they're not even from there. Yeah, of course, there's some emerging market countries, but a lot of it is the big offshore hedge funds who borrow trillions to speculate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Those are the people that owe in dollars, and I couldn't care less about a Bridgewater associate so having debts in dollars. You let Ray Dalio, like
Let them lose.
go
Let them
bust.
take some losses.
Yeah, yeah,
But think about this. On the flip side of that, there's a lot of pension funds slash retail investors funds in these institutions. So
yeah. Well,
governments won't let them
that's
go
why
belly
you
up.
need
Huh?
to. That's why you need to get your weight up and maybe try to get out of these pension funds because they're not going to survive.
Yeah.
In the UK this week, Birmingham or Birmingham, as the
Hmm.
Americans would say, in the
Hmm.
UK we say Birmingham. It's this, I think, second biggest city in the UK. Their local government just went bankrupt. So
Hmm.
there you go. Um,
Interesting. Default on default. Let me see here. What else we got here? Okay, here's another headline here, just showing how times are. becoming that much more intense. China shows signs of decoupling from the U.S. as foreign domestic investments trade falls. So basically, just highlights just how over the last couple of years, not only have they dialed back on the issue of the accumulation of treasury, but also imports is down, things of that nature. And of course, I'm hearing about iPhone, Apple right now, and all that other crap happening right now. So interesting times, but
Yeah, you can see there that little chart. It's dropping, and I think it's
mhm,
because they, they want to be careful not to have too many investments in the U.S.
mhm.
because if something happened geopolitically, like it happened with Russia, all those
Sanctions.
assets would be frozen and maybe taken by the U.S. and given to to Taiwan or something.
Taiwan. I was gonna say,
Yeah,
yeah. Speaking of that, just having concerns over having your funds confiscated. Let's get into that one. So here is another interesting development. Russia's not too happy. Fumes as U.S. plan to hand seize oligarch assets to Ukraine veterans, and so the billions that has been seized, as the Russia reports suggest, to seize so far 5.4 billion million. See so far around suggesting I think it has to be more than that. It probably meant a B, but they're saying 5.4 million. But I'm assuming it's more than that. I'm probably not reading that correctly, but anyway, so they're trying to turn those funds over to Ukraine, as I mentioned before we went live about how the U.S.'s aid package hasn't been as plentiful, perhaps, and so Zelensky is wanting more aid, more funds, and so why not just hand over their Russian funds as a
yeah.
way of subsidizing?
Uh,
And then it was go ahead.
Mr. Boston says they should make hedge funds illegal. I want to talk a little bit about hedge funds because back in like the late '90s, when I worked in the city, I worked for ABN AMRO Bank. It was a Dutch bank, investment bank, and I was approached by a hedge fund. They wanted to open an account with us, and ABN AMRO said no, no hedge funds because they're risky. But nowadays, all banks, they'll take any hedge fund. And the thing about hedge funds, they're just bankers that can't do what they used to do at J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and other banks because of all the regulations. So
Yeah.
they start this hedge fund. They're based in uh, legally based offshore in Turks and Caicos, Bermuda, or wherever, but they're sitting in New York or London, and they get the funding from the banks that they left from. So if something happens to the hedge fund, the banks will be in trouble, and indirectly the taxpayer is left holding the bag. And that's what happened in 2019. And you can check the BIS, even with the repo crisis, the BIS even said that hedge funds are in trouble. And the rumor was that it was Bridgewater Associates, which was founded by Ray Dalio, one of the big hedge funds that was in trouble. So yeah, they are just because they're just a bunch of speculators. They don't hedge anything really, and they use a lot of leverage. So if hedge funds were like made illegal, it wouldn't have any negative impact on society or the real world. It would
Yeah.
just make a few hundred very wealthy people maybe not as wealthy.
Hmm.
So
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So basically, the ultimate speculation machines. You can take all the risk with other people's funds, but then not really necessarily suffering the consequences if it goes belly
yeah,
up because the taxpayer's on the hook.
we got
Tim
a
Woodson.
super chat here.
Yeah.
Tim Goodson.
Student loan
Student
repayment.
loan.
So
Yeah, I'll let you answer that one.
student loan repayments plus Chinese economy could slow down. So last week when we were streaming, a couple people mentioned October. So do you think that something's gonna happen in October? And at that time, I wasn't really thinking about it. But then come to find out, it's the student loan repayments are supposed to start in October, and they were saying a lot of people talking about from the real estate side, you name it, all the debt issues that people are having. When people are now forced to have a tighter margins on what they actually can afford to pay, will that lead to more of an economic debt drawdown? So that's what the October stuff is about. And
Yeah,
once again, I don't think it's going to be that much of it. It
yeah.
will be an impact, but not be that big of a
As
deal.
for the Chinese economy, I think this how can I say this talk of Chinese economy not doing well is just rubbish,
Hmm.
and it's coming from the West. I'm not saying they're doing as well as they used to, but their latest GDP data, they're still growing around 4.5 to 5%.
Hmm.
It's in the West that our economies are really slow. So
Yeah.
yes, they have a problem with their real estate, but I think they're still doing quite well overall. And I'm not defending China. I'm just looking at the numbers.
Yeah, here's PM Galleria says mask mandates are back, and so I am seeing more of a push. Yeah, for people
What
to
did he say? Sorry.
know about mask mandates starting to come back.
Oh, I
So
see.
yeah,
I heard that Biden wore a mask the other day at a
yeah,
press,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I
We
heard
have
that your vice president said she's preparing for taking
to be
over.
president.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I didn't see what that
I
was
don't think
about,
it
but
would
then
change
again,
much, would it? I mean, from Biden to her, it wouldn't be much of a change.
right? Because I mean, she's been apart from her giving these random speeches where she can't understand a word this chick is saying.
Yeah, and
I
she
haven't.
rambles, doesn't she? She does. She goes around in circles and doesn't say anything.
Right. Whoever her speechwriter is needs to be fired because they have her looking dumb as oh.
Maybe he works for
uh,
Trump.
yeah, it works for somebody. But let's get to another little UK article about UK tax to inflation. So I skimmed
Oh
through this
yeah,
one.
this is really ridiculous. And the guy who wrote this, Sushil Wadhwani, he's a former Goldman Sachs banker and
Mhm,
a former Bank of England banker. And his brilliant idea is that in order to stop inflation, you have to
mhm.
tax companies that give wage increases.
Increase. Yeah.
What I mean, what a muppet, as we say it here in the UK. Just so stupid. I mean, that's the kind of people we have running things. And
Yeah.
he's an advisor to the Chancellor of the Exchequer. It's just a cockamamie idea. And the good thing, though, is I read all the comments, and
Uh-huh.
everyone actually said the same thing. What's this guy talking about? Which is a good thing because the FT is usually more lefty and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're just getting desperate. I mean, the thing is that inflation is the when you create too much currency out of thin air, and who does that? It's not workers or companies. It's the central bank and the government. So
Yeah.
they're to blame, and you don't punish people because they ask for more. Uh,
To earn more.
yeah, to earn more to make up
Yeah.
for the loss in purchasing power of the currency. And this guy
Right.
is saying, oh, if they get a 6% pay rise, the company that gave that 6% will put a 3% cap. So anything they pay above 3%, they'll have to pay 100% tax on that, which is
Mhm.
crazy.
Desperate times calls for desperate measures, obviously.
Yeah, I thought of that actually when I read that.
PM Galleria says African countries are uniting as well and will not use currency or goods. I mean, we already talked about this one, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we were talking about that one. China owns majority of the U.S. student debt. That I'm not familiar with, so I don't know. I know they own some debt, but not. I don't know about the majority because I'm not sure they want to subsidize our foolishness like that. But who
Yeah,
knows?
I'm not sure about that. They might own some. That's called a Sally Mae, isn't it?
Yeah,
But yeah, I,
yeah.
I don't.
I think I heard 1.7 trillion in student debt. That's what it is as of now. The U.S. government's greatest asset happens to be the debt that they've issued to their own people. That's interesting. All right, so let's get to some questions then. Let's find out what everybody keeping their eye on. So feel free, as always. This is the portion where we get a little Q&A. If you guys got some thoughts or whatever other subjects relevant to this monetary mayhem we're in, if you guys want to let us know or keep us up to date, let us know. So feel free to ask some questions, Mario. Let me know if you see something.
Yeah, Steel Wing asked, who owns the banks? I guess the private commercial banks are owned by the shareholders.
Mhm.
The central banks, I mean, in some countries they're partly publicly owned by the treasury of that country, and sometimes like the Swiss National Bank, they've got
Mhm.
private shareholders. The BIS is owned by the central banks of Europe and also by JP Morgan and First National Bank. So,
Mhm.
yeah, banks in general are just like other companies. They're owned by their shareholders. Who they
Yeah.
are, that's a different story. Uh, Here's a
Uh,
question from Chris. Yeah.
Chris says, "Do you think there will be a bank bailing this year? If so, what will it do to the general public psyche? Thanks." I don't think it will be one this year. I don't think it'll be one this year, just because my main thought is that their goal, they meaning those orchestrating this entire experience, they're trying to kick the can down the road as best they can, not have anything break until we get through this next presidential election. Then,
Yeah.
if we get through this, if we have that, then they can let the wheels fall off this damn train, and we'll never run smoothly again, in my opinion. So I think we still got some time before
Yeah.
they allow things to go belly up. That's my
Well,
opinion.
they didn't do bail-ins in March. They just bailed out the depositors with over
Hmm.
250,000. The other
Hmm.
thing that the U.S. banks have done is they delayed it until 2026. The new BIS rules related to bail-ins,
Hmm.
and I think the Europeans and BIS weren't happy about what the US did with the banks. So
Hmm.
no bail-ins in the US. Maybe in Europe they'll do bail-ins, but not in the US. I've got someone here, SAS Finance. Sorry about the air fryer. Not spammy, but I just bought one last week and I so unbelievably impressed. Air fryer. Do you know what that is?
I think it's a cooker,
Yeah,
like
I
you.
think we have one, but I don't know why he's talking
Yeah, I
about.
don't know. I don't have one. I gave rid of my. I didn't enjoy having mine, so I got rid of
Oh,
mine.
and he's also asking well, I think it's because it's really hot here. I don't know if he's in the UK. And he's
Uh,
also asking, is anyone in the chat buying more gold and silver this week?
hmm.
Um, I haven't, but I buy gold and silver regularly. I bought, I think a couple of weeks ago, I bought 10 1918 florins.
Yeah,
They're like junk UK silver.
yeah.
Um, and I did I went out to London, and there's a really good coin shop there called Coin Heritage. And
Coin
it's
here.
fun. Yeah, and it's funny because when I was there, it's down in the basement of another shop. uh, there's a Chinese guy there, and he said, "Hi, Mario. I didn't recognize you at first." And I said, "I don't know you." And he said, "I watch your videos. I love." So that was good to meet someone that. But yeah, this is numismatic a bit.
Hmm.
Paid more, but I really like these coins. I also
Yeah.
buy bullion coins. So they're about, I would say, the size of a $half.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Great.
they're 925 silver.
Yeah. And I want to put a question out there to the audience for those who are tuning in. Out of curiosity, how often do you guys look to redeem your fiat and get into money, i.e., gold and silver?
That's a
Like,
good
do
way to
you
put it.
guys? Yeah, this redemption. Like, so I love having because
Yeah,
I don't
you
have
don't
none.
really buy gold and silver. You redeem your notes for specie.
Right, because that's what it's all about. So here I got a little silver certificate. I love keeping my little old currency here, and
Oh
I got
yeah.
some old notes. Talk about the redemption of, yeah. So how often do you guys do it? Like, is it you on a regular schedule, once a month, twice a month? I'm curious, just out of curiosity. Throw it in the chat. Let us know how
Yeah.
often you guys redeem your fiat for real money. And then there was another question here
What's
about
your
what can we do?
thoughts on the NYSC, New York Stock Exchange? I don't really have any thoughts on the NYSC,
Yeah,
really.
I just look at whatever those two the stock indices are the primary tools that the cabal has used to maintain confidence, and as long as they
Yeah.
continue to trend that thing up, ain't nothing gonna happen.
But I mean, the NYSC is separate from the Dow Jones Industrial Average. I mean, the New York Stock Exchange has been around for a few hundred years. I think early 1800s, and
Yeah.
it's basically where people trade used to trade. They used to trade outside by an apple tree, I think.
Really?
Stock certificates, and it's
Huh.
grown. But The problem with exchanges in the last 25, 30 years, a lot of them have been that they've gone public, and a
Mhm.
lot of them have been bought by the banks and the financial institutions. Prior to that, uh, people, you or I could go and buy a seat on the NYSC or the COMEX,
Mhm.
and be and open our own brokerage. There's much more decentralization, and I
Mhm.
think that was wrong to for these exchanges to go public. So, and I'm not sure if the NYSC went public as well, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised if it did. Matthew has a question. Oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
okay. So, question says, why are silver premiums down so much? Ed, what's up, my friend? I saw something about. Well, I'm not sure, but I think I saw Andy Sheckman mention that some of the was it the gold statement or whatever, one of the primary issuers of the blanks started issuing more, and then whatever reason the U.S. Mint started to coin more, and so I think that has something to do with it. But during that time frame when when the premiums were spiking, they were not printing as many, so people were more so buying more silver eagles in particular, just out of the shortage of supply. So that was what I came
Yeah.
across. But what do you think?
Matthew has a question. Thoughts on the City of London Corporation, dark heart of London, having a completely separate jurisdiction to the UK? Well, I spoke about that a few weeks ago, or maybe a month ago. The City of London is, is a corporation. It's been around. I think it was William the Conqueror. He came over from Normandy or France in
Mhm.
1066, and the City of London was where a lot of the trade happened,
Yeah.
and he gave it the status of a corporation, and it's been like that since. So yes, it is like Washington D.C. or the Vatican.
Mhm.
There's no border, of course, like in Italy, in Rome, you can just walk into the Vatican, or in Washington D.C., you can go from Virginia. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's most people don't know that the City of London is like sovereign, and they even have a representative in Parliament. I forgot what his name is. He's got a
Mhm.
special term. So when the Queen, or now the King, if he goes into the square mile of the City of London, uh, he there's someone called the Lord Mayor. He
Mhm.
has that post for 1 year, and when he goes for the parade, if the king actually stays behind the Lord Mayor, so he's
Mm.
in charge of the
Yeah.
City of London. So it's
Really.
interesting.
Yeah. That's a lot of history there.
Yeah.
Here's one question: thoughts on how long XRP price suppression? When will XRP hit $10,000?
Well, I don't follow XRP. I used to have some, and yeah, I don't really follow crypto that
Yeah.
much.
I think this whole, just this digital asset suppression period is intentional because my assumption is this. So my thoughts on this is that, like right now, this whole ETF stuff, they're trying their best to stall. Like they can use the crypto as an exit out of all the inflating fiat currencies, i.e., hyperinflationary type numbers. So the time that XRP reaches $10,000, every other currency in the world would definitely not be something people want to
Yeah.
hold, and
Yeah.
that's not necessarily a good thing either, because that one coin at $10,000 won't probably have much purchasing power or value to it in of itself. So that's just
Mm.
my thought.
Yeah, someone here, Shane Sturgis, just reminded me that the guy who represents the city in Parliament is called the Remembrancer.
Mhm.
So he's not even
Remembrance,
remembrancer. He's
right?
not even elected, but he sits in Parliament, in the Houses of House of Commons, and he looks after the interests of the City of London. There you go.
What else? You got any other question? So yeah, make it easier to read questions. Highlight at Manico64 at rethinking the dollar so to stand out, because I see a lot of statements, but not necessarily questions. holler back and forth.
Oh
See some
yeah,
other
if you want to
and
ask a question, go at Monaco64 and then ask the question.
he like, huh? Oh. What oh, I didn't see any response either to the how often on redemption. Did you see? I didn't see. Yes, 25 miles. I didn't see any responses. Did I? LBP? No. What else? I don't see any other
There's a
questions.
question here from Koki Hemi. Have you ever spoken of Harry Dexter White and the giving of gold certificates, printing plates to the Soviet Union? I mean, Harry Dexter White, he was the American representative at the Bretton Woods uh, conference. Um, I didn't know that he gave the Soviets gold certificate printing plates, but I wouldn't be surprised because Wall Street, they not only financed the Bolshevik Revolution, they also financed the Nazi, the Nazi regime in Germany. So they, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised he did that.
Starfire says she exchanges once a week, getting her weight up
Oh,
weekly.
she redeems.
Yeah, she redeems once a week. Would you agree
Yeah.
that the biggest
Well,
mistake in 30 years?
redeeming gold and silver is the only way to get payment. When you have fiat currency, you can't extinguish that by paying with fiat currency. So
Mm,
if yeah, technically, if someone owes me 20 pounds and gives me this,
hmm.
yes, he's extinguished the debt, but I I'm still holding a piece of debt from the Bank of
Yeah,
England. The only
yeah.
way to extinguish that debt is to get the metal.
Hmm.
Um, and that's why the dollar, the pound, all fiat currencies they are I owe you nothings.
Right.
And one day they'll go to zero.
So
Uh,
Greg says, whatever happened to JFK's silver certificates? Well, that got canceled, unfortunately, once he, you
yeah,
know.
I mean that story is not clear cut because apparently they were gonna retire the silver certificates anyway,
Mhm.
and it's executive order uh,
One,
3510 001 triple 10. And yeah, I'm not too sure about that, whether Kennedy really wanted to bring silver back again. Um, who knows? But
yeah, didn't get a chance to do it,
the
unfortunately.
thing is that there are some of those certificates out there, and you can't get silver for it. I think it was in '68, Lyndon Johnson, or '65.
Yeah,
They
right.
made it.
Uh,
Mr. Boston says, Monaco 64, what do you think America will, when do you think America will ride its course? Well, I think it depends on each individual.
mhm.
I think there are a lot of individuals, not just in America, but everywhere around the world, who are taking the right course, and that's all you can do. Um, you can't wait for someone on a white horse to solve your problems. That might not
Yeah.
seem like a good answer, but I've come to the conclusion that you gotta be in charge of your own affairs. And I think there's a lot of good people, not just in America, but everywhere.
Hmm. Here's another question. Manico 64. Question for Mike. Okay, this question for my fellow American. What do you think the purpose of our three-letter agencies funding the invasion is? Is it more than just votes? Our three-letter agencies, I've come to realize that they are the tool that is being used to enforce the agenda of those that control the government. So, as far as this invasion, I'm assuming you're referring to Ukraine invasion, if I'm not mistaken. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they are in there calling shots and supporting, surrounding, securing Zelensky and everything else, if there's even anything really happening as they make it seem. But once again, the three-letter agencies, man, to me, I've learned that they are literally just tools used to
Yeah.
enforce and enslave citizen. So
And they're
IRS,
also,
FBI, CIA. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
even though I'm not American, I think they're also the enforcement arm of the military, industrial, pharmaceutical complex. You
Yeah,
know, they do their
they do
bidding.
their bidding exactly. SAS
I,
Finance says, go ahead. You got it. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Ayanda has a question for me. Is the UK going to experience energy price hike this winter? I think so, actually,
Mm.
only because the pound, I think, is on its way back down, and oil and natural gas, I think, are going to go back up. Oil is
Yeah.
already going back up, so I, you know, it's not for certain, but things look like they're going that way.
Yeah. Low blood pressure. Yeah. I hope everything goes well for you tomorrow. Prayers. So low blood
Oh,
pressure's been asking me
thank
to.
you. Yeah,
He's been
for
asking
my
me to pray. He's been asking me to end the live stream with a prayer, pray for you.
yeah,
So we can do that if you feel comfortable.
yeah. Someone's asking about kinesis. I've heard of kinesis for many years. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of kinesis. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, same here. They're growing too fast and getting too. They're getting the support of too many questionable entities for me. So that's just my opinion. What else we got here? Thumbs up, DD Prepper, appreciate it. Mike, what is your channel? Or what is your YouTube channel? What is your YouTube channel? I want to sub. Oh, just rethinking a dollar. Look up
Yeah,
rethinking a dollar.
it's in the description of this my live stream. The
Awesome.
Que sera. Could you bring that up? She got a question, or he?
Hey, Sarah. Where we at? K Sarah. Give me 1 second.
What are your thoughts on NatWest?
Oh,
Yeah, well, I think this is a bit exaggerated because I have an account with NatWest, and I went in there a few weeks ago and I asked about that, and the lady said, you know, because I've got a limit that I can take out from the cash machine, 750 pounds, and she said, "Oh, don't worry, you know, you can still do that." She said, "It's not for people like you; it's for people who might abuse it, you know, and take, you know, who are doing things that are not above board." So yeah, and the same thing for yeah.
right.
And I'm
Just
not saying that the banks are any good because they're not, and they're closing a lot of the branches here in the UK as well. So, but I think, yeah, I mean, Nigel Farage had problems with with NatWest and Coots, but yeah, I don't really have any problems right now, and I don't think. I mean, we'll have to see if in September I try to take over 250 pounds and they don't allow me to. Then there will be a problem. But from what the lady there said to me, there shouldn't.
here's another question for you. Thoughts on King William III being in debt and Department of London Goldsmith coming up with the sale of stock and of the Bank of England to come up with the money.
Well, that
I don't know anything about that.
that's the you know, the creation of the Bank of England.
Mhm.
William III was William of Orange, William and Mary,
Mhm.
and the UK had a lot of debt, and the way to pay off that debt was to create the you know, the Bank of England, and the proceeds of selling shares in the Bank of England was used to cover the national debt, and they've been doing that since then. You know, 1694. So
Yeah.
the Bank of England was created by a royal charter.
Uh, any thoughts on military draft? Yeah, I don't think that'll fly.
I
I don't
think
think
they
that'll
need,
fly.
if they do have a military draft, they should first take all the relatives of all the
Politics.
Congress,
Right.
Con- Congress people, members of Parliament. They should go first.
All their grandkids. Sign up their
Grandkids,
grandkids first.
sons, everything, like nephews, nieces.
Yeah. I
William
know Dexter.
Cooper, I know about. I have his book, "Behold a Pale Horse." I have William Cooper, Bill Cooper. He was an interesting guy. He's passed on. I have the book on my shelf.
LPB works for credit card companies. Credit card man. Oh yeah, we're about 50 minutes, man. Let's get ready to dial back. It's been a very lively stream to say the least.
Yeah, just
So
one more.
Mario,
Yeah,
go
one
ahead.
more question.
Go ahead.
Does the royal family, specifically the monarchs, technically own the Bank of England? No, they don't. I mean, I went to the Bank of England Museum a few years ago, and guess what I saw? I saw a letter, a
Mhm,
dividend letter to George Washington, because his wife,
mhm,
she was a widow when she married George Washington, and her
mhm,
husband was a shareholder in the Bank of England. So when she married George Washington in those days, he, her all her property was passed on to him.
mhm.
So George Washington, believe it or not, was a shareholder in the Bank of England. Bank of England is supposed to
Mm.
have been nationalized in 1946, but I'm not too sure. I'm sure the Royals though have a lot of shares, but they don't own the whole thing.
Yeah. All right. So it looks like a lot of people are wishing you well
Yeah,
for your eye surgery
thank
tomorrow.
you. Yeah, I think it
And
will be. It's a routine procedure, so it should go well.
yeah. Well, people, as always, it's been great to hang out and to just keep you guys plugged in on some of the things that caught our attention, as well as to get a chance to see what you guys are keeping your eyes on. Continue to get your weight up by taking an opportunity to redeem some of those fiats that you're able to get rid of and get into something real sound and tangible that you can hold and feel and secure your future somewhat. And have a great weekend, man. Enjoy this sunshine while it's still shining, depending on where you're at, because it's still nice and warm here in Michigan. But also, Mario, wish you well tomorrow. I know the Lord will be with you and bless you and keep you as He does always. And everybody, be blessed, be safe. Mario, any last thoughts you will leave us with?
Yeah, I wish everyone else a nice weekend. It's really hot here in the UK as well. Go out and enjoy yourself and ignore all the noise.
Yeah, yeah. All right,
And,
good people. Be blessed. Go ahead.
thank you also for all the wishes for tomorrow. Thank you.
For sure. All right, good people. Go enjoy your day. Peace.
Peace.